A very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Weekly on the West Ham Voice. Thank you all for joining me on a Monday night. I'd like to ask if you've all had a good weekend, but I think I already know the answer to that, don't I? And we'll talk about the game a little bit later on and various other things as well. But let's start with a few headlines, shall we? We heard earlier tonight, or earlier today, should I say, that Roy Hodgson has left Crystal Palace and after a poor spell with regards to results and his ill health. Apparently, he was taken ill a few days before training. He collapsed at the training ground. Hodgson has decided to call it a day. I think he was going to be pushed anyway, but we wish him well and we wish him the best of health. But it sounds as if now David Moyes, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is now the oldest manager in the Premier League. How appropriate, hey? 76-year-old Hodgson. It was his second spell at Palace, and he left the club in 16th position. They should be all right this season. They got quite a few points away from the drop zone, but we wish him well. And Palace didn't waste any time, did they? Because they've immediately announced Glasner to replace him. The 49-year-old Austrian manager, Oliver Glasner, as you all know, was the manager of Eintracht Frankfurt when they beat us in the semi-final of the Europa League a couple of seasons ago. He's taken over from Hodgson. And he's got an interesting, not a stunning career. I know a few fans were talking about wanting him at West Ham United. But look, he managed it both in Austria and Germany. And in his first season at Wolfsburg, he got them to qualify for the Europa League. But it was at Frankfurt that he had most of his success as manager, winning, of course, the Europa League when they beat us. And then they beat Rangers in the final, which qualified them for the Champions League. But they didn't go much further than the round of 16 in the Champions League. And he did all right in Germany. But I think in the season that we were playing them, I think they finished something like 11th in the league, something like that. So let's see how he does in the Premier League. He's an interesting manager. You know, I remember doing a show about him quite some time ago when we were last linked to him. And there was a rumor that he was the David Moyes of German football, where he doesn't like to use youth players. So let's see what happens there. It'll be quite interesting to find out. I'm going to come on to the managers that are linked to us, West Ham, but I don't build your hopes up, because my understanding is a couple of stories have broken out tonight. My understanding is that David Moyes will continue to be given time to get things right. The board still want to give him an extension of an extension contract, but he's got to demonstrate that he can turn things around. I mean, obviously, you know, if things are going to go on the way they are, then obviously he's not going to be offered a new contract. So I don't know how breaking that news is. But another story that broke out this evening is that Daniel Kretinsky is unhappy with everything that's going on at West Ham. And apparently the story goes that if only he could, you know, had a majority shareholding at West Ham United, he'd do things differently. Well, people, you do remember that Vanessa Gold is selling 10% of her shares, and apparently they've not been sold yet. And if Daniel Kretinsky really wants to up the ante at West Ham United, he can go and increase his sharehold from 27% to 37%. It still won't be the majority shareholding, but it will give him much more clout at West Ham. He's shown no interest at all in buying the shares of Vanessa Gold. I could be wrong. Maybe he might change his mind now that he's unhappy the way West Ham is going in the second half of this season. But I doubt it very much. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. Like I said, if he's that unhappy, buy the extra 10% of Vanessa Gold, start building up your sharehold, and see what you can do in terms of turning things around at West Ham. But we keep, you know, it's an interesting story that came out about Kretinsky, but we keep being told that Kretinsky is just happy to be, you know, an investor. And whilst he's earning money, you know, and so long as we stay in the Premier League, I think that's about all that he kind of cares about. So let's see. if he's really that bothered about the way West Ham is being run and about David Moyes, and apparently he wouldn't have Moyes if he was in charge of West Ham United, well, Mr. Kretinsky, there are 10% shares going. All you got to do is knock on Vanessa Gold's door and buy them off her. Anyway, let's go into the chat because I can see I've got one or two comments to pick up on. So let's, as I usually do, let's scroll to the top and say hello to people. Shaky, good evening to you, usual. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Foxes. I hope you're well. Good evening, Anthony. How are you? Hustle Crow, good evening to you. I'm not mad at anything other than the trajectory we've been going. Whoever takes the reins, whenever that may be, got to bring it back on home. Totally agree. It's not been great. Black Country, good evening to you. You might have been right there. I know I was a bit late. Graham, I hope you're well, mate. I'm pulling my hair out with this club. You got a lot of it, so don't do that, mate. I hope you're well. Mark, how are you, mate? Good evening to you, David, and good evening to you, Steve. Anthony, I went on the internet. Steidten wants Tuchel to take over from Moyes. Tuchel is going to be sacked by Bayern Munich, who employ a manager who's been sacked. Doesn't that tell you something? Well, I've got some details about Tuchel. He's a very interesting manager. I probably wouldn't say no to him. David, I looked at Philip's stats. It really isn't that good. It isn't that good. One good performance for England. He really isn't going to turn it around. You know, I'm going to stick to what I said about Calvin Phillips, because when we went in for him and we were getting him, I did suggest that I thought he could do something different for West Ham. I think him alongside Areola, Gerd, I'll get it right in a minute, Alvarez, him alongside Alvarez in the middle of the park could actually offer us, once he's up, you know, fully up and running, could offer us a bit of different stability with and allow our attacking players to be a bit more adventurous, which we haven't been so far. I was hoping for that on Saturday against Nottingham Forest, but that didn't materialise. And then he gets two yellow cards. Ben, good evening to you. Really hope Sully changes his way and fully backs Steidten, although can a leopard ever change its spots? Well, look, I think Sully has changed his spots. No, I'm not bigging up the owners. I think they've got an awful lot to answer for. But the fact that he actually hired Steidten in the first place was a shock, certainly a shock to me, and I'm shocked to, and I'm sure a shock to an awful lot of fans, because never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that David Sullivan would finally think about the footballing side of West Ham United. Of course, as I've said many times before, the business side of things, no problem. Move to another stadium, save an awful lot of money, etc., etc. We all know the story. But the one thing that ironically has been neglected is the footballing side of the football club. And when he took on Steidten, I was shocked but pleasantly surprised. But you're absolutely right, Ben. He's now got to allow Steidten to really develop this club, really take it where we believe it should be going, and hope he doesn't get in the way of that. Barry, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Another miserable day in West Ham world. He is still here. Wake me up when he is gone. Stay awake, mate. He's still here. Ronnie, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. It's already messy. We will all be leaving half-time on fuck me. Next Monday, by the way, of course, we're playing Brentford at home. Ivan Toney. What could go wrong, eh? So it won't be a West Ham Weekly on Monday, but it will be on the Tuesday night. Of course, I'll be bringing you all the goals when we score, we smash them, whatever, nil next Monday. Well, we can only dream. So no West Ham Weekly next Monday, but it will be on the Tuesday. Hammerett, good evening to you. Steidten's brother has now been made head of international scouting. Could mean Scarfy has no intention of leaving anytime soon. So you did watch my show last week when I mentioned all that, didn't you, Hammerett? Please say you did. Who else have we got in here? Good evening to you, Bill. I hope you're well. Still, we'll have plenty to talk about this evening. I'm sure I will. Constant noise coming from everywhere. Just don't know what to believe. Well, you can believe that David Moyes is not going to be sacked anytime soon. I kind of said that quite a few times before, and my gut still tells me, and I did ask earlier in the evening, I gave Sean a list of names, and I said, Tuchel and Lopetegui, etc. Manager. No. Moyes, yes. Apparently, as it stands, they're still reliant on David Moyes to turn things around because they do want to offer him a new contract. But it could go to a vote. Now, the there are a number of directors, shareholders at West Ham United, of which, of course, Sullivan is the biggest stakeholder, with the Gold family, I think, a second, and then it's Kretinsky. I could be wrong. I can't remember. And one of the one of the stories is that it could at the end of the season. I don't think Moyes will go before the end of the season, unless, of course, we crash out of Europe. And then, as I've said a few times in previous shows, you might see the board make a decision if we go out of Europe in March. So watch this space. But let's say, for argument's sake, it goes to the end of the season and Moyes comes to the end of his contract. If they haven't sorted anything by then, apparently it could go to a board vote. And from what I understand, all right, Kretinsky, we've just heard, apparently is not happy. So it'd be interesting to see what way he votes. Sullivan, Sullivan's 50-50 at the moment. I think there was a point where he was going, absolutely, there's no reason why we shouldn't give Moyes a new contract. And now it's a little bit iffy. And then it all depends on some of the other board. What will happen with the Gold family? Which way will they vote? David Gold, bless his soul, was a supporter of David Moyes when Gold was around. And so maybe the family might be the same way thinking. They might want Moyes to stay. So it's going to be quite interesting if that materialises. David, Leeds fans said Phillips only did well when Bielsa took over. That's apparently quite true. Good evening, Pete. How are the knees? I hope you're well. Are you coming to that game? Is next Monday going to be your first game or not just yet? Trodge, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. I'm going to try and do tonight, because I've got so many comments, I'm going to try and get people that, at least get one comment in from every person if I possibly can. Matt, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Toha, how are you? You've got to get on here on a Sunday to predict Stell's appearance these days. Get on here on a Sunday to predict my appearance. Why does my appearance change? That doesn't change. Just hair, glasses, and a West Ham top. Can't be any more difficult than that. Paul, good evening to you. Moyes ball don't work. Luck has run out. Yeah, we're going to find out next Monday. God, I dread to think what the atmosphere is going to be like next Monday should we go a goal behind against Brentford, because it's not going to be an easy one at all. Graham, I hope you're well, mate. No spice rum, although ironically, there's other things happening, and I literally had to go and buy myself a bottle of rum on the way home yesterday, but I haven't drunk it. I haven't even opened it. What's going on in this world? GJ, I hope you're well. John Lyles, Claret, who are me? Good evening to you, James. I hope you're well. There's cold weather on the way, and it's all Moyes' fault. Mark, hello, mate. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Who else have we got here? Lee, hello, mate. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Mandy. You're early tonight, Mandy. You normally come on at the tail end. James, how are you, mate? Thank you for joining as well. Let's get some big comments in. Good evening to you, Lord Patrick. I can see you there as well. So outrageous. Are you drinking? I was told that I should have made the title of the show outrageous. If anybody saw the post-match review as we were coming out of the City ground on Saturday, my mate Wiggy was a little bit inebriated, and he kept coming on as I was filming. He kept butting in, put some good comments in as well. And he kept using the word outrageous. It's outrageous. Outrageous it was. Montana, good evening to you. My weekend was good. I couldn't be bothered with a manager that is limited, and I know it. You see, when you become immune to it, life becomes a little bit easier, doesn't it? I'm not saying you should accept it. I said when you become immune to it. GJ, Stel, if my wife was late, divorce papers would be out. Hey, no problem. I'm glad. Mark, good evening. Moyes, oldest in the world, just like our squad. He is now the oldest manager in the Premier League. Am I correct in thinking that? Montana, Moyes will be let go at the end of the season, regardless of how our season ends. He has reached his limit. If you saw the show I did earlier today, I did a quick one where I had some comments from a Nottingham Forest fan. Watch it after this show. I had some comments from a Nottingham Forest fan who, asked me, well, what's it all about, West Ham fans? Why are you all so upset? You're doing well in the league, and You're in Europe, etc., etc. And I think they were probably looking from, no disrespect to them, but they are below us at the moment in the league. And they were looking from the bottom up and going, well, if only we could be there, I don't think we'd be complaining. And I tried to explain it's about the football, it's the style of football, it's about the negativity, it's about, not, showing up, the players, looking like they're sort of only playing at half the pace that they could, etc. And he came back and he sort of, he said again, you must have been doing something right in order to still be high up in the league. And he's got a point. But it kind of made me ask the question, if David Moyes does turn it around, if we end up having a decent season after all, and we, I don't know, we finish, say, 6th or 7th, and we're back in Europe again, what would the board do then? It's an interesting one, because I see what you're saying, Montana, but I just wonder. I think the board are hoping for David Moyes to turn it around so that they could confidently give him a new contract. He's got it all to do, Moyes. He's got it all to do. And I've seen the comments that when he talked about fans, sorry about that, my Wi-Fi, I just saw my Wi-Fi go down. When he talked about the fans, maybe wanting more, but he was the only one that was winning, etc. Excuse me. But he was the only one winning, etc. And that was a Sam Allardyce moment. It was like, Mr. Moyes, the last thing you want to be doing is goading the fans when they are, they're holding up the placards, they're already shouting for Moyes out, etc. Sacked in the morning is what the fans were singing at the City Ground and so on. The last thing you want to do is goad them by saying, I'm your most successful manager. That was a Sam Allardyce moment, and it was very unwelcome because it wound me up, and I'm trying to be, sort of neutral on all this stuff. But I can't imagine what it would have done to those who are vehemently Moyes out, because it's the last thing you want to hear someone who's just lost 3 games in a row to say, but I've won. Well, mate, you haven't won in the last 8. We haven't won a game in the last 8. Ironically, the last game we won was before Christmas, or was it just after Christmas, when we beat Arsenal 2-0 at their ground? That was it. What is it? What's the old saying about West Ham? They come down with the Christmas lights, and that's what it feels like at the moment. The last thing you want, Mr. Moyes, is to goad the fans by saying, I'm your best manager and all that. It was a weird one, that. Flamer, good evening to you. I'm sorry, Stel, but this Moyes thing is becoming tiring. I'm giving up until he's gone. A lot of people feel that, and on both sides, actually, to be quite honest with you. Those who are sort of quite, Moyes out, and those who are Moyes in have gone, it's getting too much now. We're losing focus on the football. All right, I know the football's shit. Let's not deny it. We can't deny it. The football is not good. It's pretty turgid at the moment. But we're kind of like, it's gotten to the point where the next time we win a game, it's going to be, despite Moyes. And when we lose a game, it's because of Moyes. And it will just carry on like that. And we've got to try and enjoy. I know it's difficult because the football's not great, but we've got to try and enjoy it. And I know it's difficult to sort of like try and get away from the Moyes out, Moyes in scenario. But maybe come the end of the season, see where we are, see how far we are in Europe, where we are in the league, etc. And then maybe, I don't know, am I right? Am I wrong? Should we be protesting? I think it's everybody's right to do so. But how does that feel? I mean, the Nottingham Forest fan kind of alluded to that can't be good for morale and stuff like that. Well, it's certainly not good for the fans' morale, that's for sure. Keith, you're not late, mate, because I probably started as you were coming on. So I'm hope you're well. Good evening to you, Trini. I hope you're well too. Ian, good evening, mate. Oldest manager and dinosaur tactics too. Eight Barley, good evening. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Steve. How are you, mate? I'm Heitinga in till the end of the season. Moyes and Phillips out. If West Ham United did decide to make a move on getting rid of Moyes before the season end, I'd go with that, to be quite honest with you. There's been a few comments about, we should get Potter in. I'm so anti-Potter, it's untrue. I really don't think he's going to be the answer to our desire to go up to the next level. But it'll be sort of damage limitation, wouldn't it? So I'd go with Heitinga, to be quite honest with you, until we can get a manager that we want at the end of the season. Lord Patrick, how are you, mate? I'm going to have to pause this. I'm popping out for a kebab. Bring me one, will you? Finn, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. Do forgive me if I don't put all your... I'll try and get through as many as I can, but I can already see I'm not too bad. Okay. Finn, would love to see fans to take to seats Monday night, then all Foxtrot Oscar at kickoff. Everyone out. Well, there's been suggestions that... fans should go into the stadium 5 minutes after the start and all that sort of stuff to sort of demonstrate. I get that. The one thing I hope we don't do is there's an anniversary coming up. I may have mentioned it last week. I can't remember. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself. But there's an anniversary coming up that's I'm not looking forward to. And it's the 6-year anniversary of when there were pitch invasions when we played Burnley, 10th of March, 2018. Yes, that is correct. 2016. Sorry. No, 2018. I was right the first time. 6-year anniversary. And the one thing I really hope we don't do, no matter how bad it gets, is to start having pitch invasions again, etc. I'm not saying, like I said a moment ago, I'm not saying we shouldn't be protesting, but there are ways of doing it. And the last thing you want is to risk, losing points. Or whatever, being deducted points or whatever for pitch invasions. I think we're still on a warning going that far back. I could be wrong, but I hope that I hope the fans do it in the right way. Maybe coming in 5 minutes after kickoff is the right thing to do. Would I do it personally? No. It's not because I'm Moyes in, Moyes out, or whatever. It's just me. I wouldn't necessarily do, unless I'm late, which I normally am. But I wouldn't do it on purpose, I guess. Let's see. Who else do we have? I'll go with you again, Montana. I don't care who the next manager is, unless one, he brings youth through. Talk about that in a minute. And 2, improve the current players. Talk about that in a minute. 3, plays proactive football. Yep. And 4, does not live in the past. Well, you might like the 2 managers that are the latest links to West Ham United. And they're both interesting for very different reasons. Daniela, good evening to you. Girls and guys, when we all remember we are West Ham fans through and through, we're going through a tough time. We will get through this, and we should not believe everything we read. Absolutely true. Sharky, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Troj, Kretinsky takes over and demands Souček is never dropped. There you go. Toha, interesting cue for you. Who would you take company? Oh, no. I think, with the greatest of respect to Vincent Kompany, you would have expected, given how well he did, Vincent Kompany, in the Championship last season with Burnley, I thought they would be a force to be reckoned with in the Premier League. I wasn't expecting them to hit top 6, top 10 or anything like that, but I thought they would not struggle as much as they have done. And I think he's a little bit wet behind the ears, Mr. Kompany, and it will take him another couple of seasons maybe to really get to grips with the trials and tribulations of the Premier League. I know you asked Hammerette that, but I answered it for her. Who else? Epic, good evening to you, mate. I hope he's well. I hope you're well. I really hope Moyes doesn't save his job again. This whole thing I mentioned last week about having 4 games, I never believed that in the first place. I still don't believe it, because people are now counting down. Well, there's 1 gone, 3 to go. I don't think that'll happen, to be honest. Kevin, good evening to you, mate. Tim is thinking of leaving West Ham. Yeah, I talked about that last week, and I talked in depth about, Tim Steidten bringing in his brother, bringing in the new the new director of damn it, he data-driven analyst, etc. So I'm not so sure, and we've seen photos of Steidten and Moyes in conversation a bit before every game, and there were photos of him doing it again before the Nottingham Forest game. And I think the 2 men have got an understanding. I think they just have to. I think maybe Steidten might be thinking, well, he ain't going to be around much longer, so let's carry on. I don't know. It's going to be quite interesting, to be honest with you. I think Steiden's here to stay, at least for a couple of years. So I don't believe all these rumours about Liverpool, to be honest. Ryan, I hope you're well, mate. I'm very well, calling me Savalas. Mark, if Kretinsky buys a majority stake, where does that put him with FIFA for owning shares in the 2 clubs? Absolutely. He'd have to rescind his ownership at his other club. And that would be a problem for him. But that again, herein lies why I don't think Kretinsky is here for the footballing side of things. Of course, he has an interest in the footballing side because it's making him money, and whilst it makes him money, he'll continue to be an investor. But if it all goes, tits up and we get relegated, which we won't, but if we got relegated, etc., and he started to lose money, I think he'd probably sell his shares, to be honest. Dean, good evening to you. I'm banking on the show offering far greater entertainment than the winner gives us on the pitch every week. Good luck with that one, mate. Mark, Tuchel will be chomping at the bit to get back to the Premier League. Good evening to you, NWO. I hope you're well, mate. Good evening to you, V9. If Moyes stays, will Areola become 150 million subs? He has been our hammer of the year, hasn't he? Because let's be honest, people, without Alphonse Areola, God knows how many more points we would have lost, how many games we would have lost, and how many more goals we would have had conceded. I am sorry. I've just seen my Wi-Fi blink again, and I hope that's not ruining your entertainment. Ryan, why did the baker's hand smell of shite? Because he needed a poo. Bit early for the jokes, but thank you for that one, Ryan. Ian R. If Tim wants Tuchel, we have to run with it. But if Tim wants Tuchel, we have to run. But then we must be given 100% trust and time to rebuild. Dean, adventurous still? Go and wash your mouth out with soap. We'll have no talk of adventurous football around here. Alfonso, good evening to you, mate. Let's all sing Tim Steidten's Clown Blue Army on Monday night to let Sullivan and other stakeholders know exactly who we're behind. I like that. That would be quite an interesting protest. I actually really like that. And that's a new name, Alfonso. So welcome to the family here at the West Ham Voice. Thank you for joining and thank you for commenting. Mike, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Sunderland is looking for a new manager. Let's scroll down and get some other people in who haven't yet commented. James, a jolly good evening to you. They're talking to the others. Good evening to everyone. Contact Light. That's another new name. Thank you for joining as well. Moyes is gone. The board will be all too aware that they're in the firing line from the fans if he stays. And that's a very, very good point, to be honest with you, because the attention will turn on the owners at some point. And we know Sullivan just wants to be on the right side of the fans, doesn't he? And in a strange sort of way, keeping Moyes here, ironically, detracts from fans becoming annoyed with the owners. But for how long? That's a good question. It's a really good point you're making. Because if they do give David Moyes, if for argument's sake, we kind of get our way through this season, go out of Europe, don't finish in a European place at the end of the season, but then the board decide he's done good enough to sort of be given a new contract, I think you're absolutely right. I think the fans will start going, okay, you've asked for Moyes to stay, even though the season not been great. Now we turn our attention back on you. And Sullivan will be aware of that. So he's in a bit of a catch-22 situation. Good evening, Ray. I hope you're well. Multitasking, a bit of shopping while listening. What are you buying, mate? Food, or is it something a bit more fancy? Montana again. So imagine Don Hutchinson says if he was Moyes, he'd show us the middle finger and walk out. My prayers would be answered if that happens. He won't leave West Ham unless he's told to leave West Ham. Howard, tea and green and finishing a few wooden projects. Moritz Steidten, what's that signing about? Surely backing his brother with this appointment. Well, exactly that. That's why I don't think, I do forgive me, because my Wi-Fi shouldn't be going down the way it is. And I hope that it's not affecting the viewing. Moritz Steidten, what's that about? Well, it demonstrates that Tim Steidten is still thinking about building something at West Ham. That's what I think. And getting one of the best data-driven analysts, football analysts at West Ham United, Maximilian Hahn, is also a sign there is movement. I think the club is moving forward. There's a little blockage though, isn't there? And his name is David Moyes. Because if Moyes is given a new contract, he's going to have to go with this new way of, thinking, this new approach to player recruitment, etc. That's going to be another turning point, because we don't bring in one of the best footballing data analysts apparently in the whole of Europe, in the world, and then turn around and say, well, we've got you in, but we're not going to use your skills in order to find ourselves some of the best talent around the world. It's got to happen, hasn't it? Good evening, James. I hope you're well. Sharky, where's the cats? One of them is sleeping here. He's still ill. He's fast asleep. So I'll try not to wake him. Lord Patrick, happy doesn't... I'm not going to even talk about that. Mandy G, can you imagine another season with Moyes? It might have to be. I really don't know. I mean, it is 50-50 at the moment. I know there's an awful lot of noise of, and it's getting stronger. And especially, as I said in the post-match review, when you lose the away fans, you're on a slippery slope. And he did. You know, the last time we saw that Moyes out banner was in the game against Fulham last season in the away game. And of course, that was put. I thought that might have been thrown away, but clearly not. It was put away for a rainy day, and it was brought out again on Saturday. And I've got a feeling that, you know, when you start losing the away fans, you kind of lost the fan base altogether. Keith, evening still. Just watch your other video about comments by others. I do hope Moyes can turn it around. We need a good second half of the season. Then wish him well as we say bye-bye. That's what a lot of people are hoping. By all means, have a good season, but not necessarily give him a new contract. Richard, let's look at the positive. Moyes will be going. Tim will be left in charge on all counts. His brother plus one other are now part of the team. Will be massive again. Yeah, the one other is Maximilian Hahn. And like I said, he's meant to be one of the best analysts, data analysts, to find some of the best young talent around the globe. So let's see how that works out. In Tim we trust. Liverpool, Chelsea, Spuds all touted him, so must be doing something right, which we are not doing. Well, I think he's been given enough, you know, to go on so far. He had a say in the transfer market in the summer. Didn't seem to have had much of a say in the transfer market in January. But then we hear conflicting stories of what happened in the transfer market in January. Some people blaming Steidten, some people blaming Moyes, and others blaming Sullivan. Take your pick. Who was at fault for not bringing any more than one player in during the January transfer window? Maybe they were all at fault at some way or another. Sean, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, James. Galimera, mate. I hope you're well. Not stellar just yet. I'm not planning to. It's a little frosty out West Ham way. I hope you're well, James. Good evening to you, Andrew. We should be talking now to Sporting's Ruben Almiron representatives because he is up there with Alonso. We have a chance of getting him now before his stock becomes high, like Alonso now. Good shout. Good shout. Alexia, good evening to you. My biggest fear is if we get someone else, Tuchel, Lopetegui, whoever that might be, and the poor form will only continue for more games. What are we to do then? We are never granted an easy life. Now, that's a very, very interesting question. What happens if David Moyes goes and we get another manager and they're going to say, I need a year, 2 years to build? You know, are we going to be patient, or do we want instant success? Does it come? Instant success normally comes, it's that adrenaline rush, isn't it? You get that adrenaline rush and then it's like a big down afterwards. You know, there have been, not necessarily at West Ham, but there have been managers elsewhere that they come in, they give you that hit, and then it doesn't go well thereafter. So it's a good point. It's a good question. You know, what happens if we get another manager in and it doesn't go as well as we all like to think? Finn, if it's true that it goes to a board vote, do the retired actresses added in lockdown get a vote? The retired actresses added in lockdown. I don't know what you mean. I'm missing something clearly. Yeah, I got that one, mate. I hope you're well. It's frosty in Australia, mate. Dean, if he gets a new deal, he will feel emboldened, and I fear he would revert to wanting the likes of Maguire and McTominay once again. He's like Sisyphus on the endless hill. It's a good call. It's a good call. He will feel that he'll be untouchable, wouldn't he? Trini, still get rid. He has proved he cannot progress the team. How many chances does he need? Bill, Daniela, watched it live. Phillips was taking a chance with any tackle with that referee around. The referee wasn't great, let's be honest with you, but it was soft and he barely touched the player, didn't he? Black Country, the cat's gone through the cable again. Something's going through the effing cables. I'm really fucked up. I've spent money on getting it fixed and it's still not right. I don't understand it. Ronnie, I had the same type of conversation with a Leicester fan on the way to Nottingham who couldn't understand. They don't. You know, people look at from the outside in and go, "What's wrong with you guys? What's the issue? What's the problem? How come my Wi-Fi go, mate? If I knew, I'd get it fixed. I've had it fixed already twice. So hustle. I think I'm going to get the Wi-Fi moved. I've got to have it actually repositioned. It's got to be that. Hustle. Get Ruben Amorim in. I know not likely not. That's my vote. Good evening. Good evening to you as well. Who else have we got? Don B. Good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Ivan Toney and the rest of the Brentford side will be relishing the game next week. You're right, Stel. It's going to turn very toxic if we go a goal down. I'm worried that if we do. Keith, mate, how are you? Phillips is not match ready. 2 silly tackles and he goes off. Harsh, but you can't do it in the Premier League now. The refs are too fragile. The referee wasn't great in the game, and the fans, were sort of on his back, and I think he felt pressurized to give him that second yellow. But it's a shame. Anyway, Montana, if Moyes is this wonderful manager, why are clubs not breaking their banks to get him? That fella is loose in the head. I think what's interesting is I think I'm going to stick to it. If he leaves West Ham, when he leaves West Ham United, I think there'll be a Premier League club that will come in for him. I don't think it will be to our level. I think it'll be a club that might be looking at stabilizing themselves. Stabilizing themselves in the Premier League. But like I said earlier in the show, Moyes, this is Moyes' last big gig as a manager. I don't think he'll go to a club that's going to be able to give him all this money to spend in the transfer market and so on. So it's going to be quite interesting. But I do actually think that Moyes could possibly get another job in the Premier League. Will Still, he's a hammer, got his heart on his shirt and progressive manager. Work with Tim and we are made. Greatest of respect. If we want to get a progressive manager who's going to sort of take us to whatever we believe that next level's got to be, we've got to be looking at some top names. We've got to be looking at managers who have cut their teeth and have demonstrated that they can actually do it in the Premier League or have done it in other leagues. Top of the Spanish league, top of the Italian league, even perhaps top of the French league or top of the Portuguese league or something like that. I think we need to go for a manager that has proven his worth in the leagues that he's been managing in, the German league and so on and so forth. Hammer it. No other club has come in for Moyes. This wonderful winning manager. Proof is in the pudding. Football with Brownie. Good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Please don't think that all non-West Ham fans are belittling West Ham fans because of the Moyes issue. Real fans of all clubs can see what the media are doing. Keep going. Thank you very much. Funky T, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. I'm not so sure if in Moyes' TV interviews he is being arrogant or in denial. Has there been too much water under the bridge for him to change the fans' minds? I think it's it's very close to that point. I think the fans are at the point of going, stop feeding us this shit. We're not going to buy it. All this thing about remember the past and remember the good times and remember, I'm the best winning manager, etc., etc. The fans, when they get pissed off, are going to go, we don't give a damn of what happened even a year ago. It's not that we will forget it. Like I did a show earlier today and I talked about one of the Stephen Warnock from Sky TV going, West Ham fans have got short memories and all that sort of stuff. It's not that we'll forget that. We will cherish that forever. But that's not where it stops, is it? West Ham progressing is not at that point, at the point in Prague when the final whistle went. We want more. Of course we want more success. We're not expecting success after success after success. We're not expecting top four, etc., but we're expecting effort. And I think that's the bit that's missing at the moment in the teams that are going out there for whatever reason, whether it's the formation, whether it's the tactics, whether it's whatever. I think it's a combination of all. I think some players have got to look in the mirror and go, am I trying hard enough? Good. For me, brought straight back into the team after the AFCON, a big mistake. There's a player that we're missing in West Ham United at the moment at the back, and that's Angelo Ogbonna, who does wear his heart on his sleeve when he plays for West Ham. And he's a little bit like the old Craig Dawson. He'll get in there. He's aged like a fine wine. Look, I think we should be replacing our older players. I don't think, that no doubt about that, but needs must at the moment. And ironically, for me, our best central defender is Ogbonna. I think Agert doesn't look interested. I think Mavropanos is still learning and trying to get rid of all the mistakes he's making. Zuma can't fucking run, can't can't kick a ball, can't tackle, can't do anything. And a Gerd for me looks a little bit disinterested. And I do think that Moyes is in denial, but I also think some guys down again. My apologies, people. GJ, my heart sank. Moyes said we are playing good football because we score goals. In an older interview, he stated he wants West Ham to play good football. This tells me he can't change his style. Graham, Wiggy has the best idea. Get inebriated during the game and the inevitable defeat will hurt a lot less. Well, we drank 3 bottles of Prosecco on the way up there. So we were a little bit pissed. Yeah, you heard it. Prosecco, get over it. Mark, get rid of Moyes now. You're left with the same weakened squad and same coaches. A payoff and not much room to change anything. You know, I mean, here we are, half a billion, and we got an old, weak squad. Martin, good evening to you. I hope you're well. DeCanio, good evening to you. Steve Bruce had been seen at Rush Green Kebab Shop. Here we go. Confirmed. Good evening to you, Ralph. I hope you're well. We support West Ham for the football, never for a trophy. We didn't start supporting West Ham because they were a top 4 team. This is why we expect football. Tell the pundits that. Good point. Martin, good evening to you, mate. I do apologize about the Wi-Fi. I don't know why it keeps going down. I'll get it sorted. I'm sorry. Martin, I genuinely think we can still finish in the top 6 and win the Europa Cup, but not with Moyes. I think Tuchel could do it, though, but we won't get Tuchel before the end of this season. Man, don't give. Good evening to you. Don't really understand Bambling Sullivan and transfer window for our situation. Moyes' football has been like this for 2 years. Whatever Sullivan is, he's given Moyes plenty of money since he's been here. Don't disagree with that. That is actual fact and very, very true. Martin Duncan. To be honest, still, it's like a pantomime. Sick of the way the club is being run. The treatment of Pablo has left a sour taste with the team. They look disinterested. I am Moyes out, I guess is that. You're gonna or I'm Moised out or whatever. Let's get some more in. Good evening to you, Aquam. I hope you're. Have I said your name right? Forgive me if I haven't. Who would you take? Well, I've got a couple of. I don't know. Good segue into who I think would be good at West Ham United. Let's start with the first one, shall we? Because there's been 2 names that have been bandied around in the last day or so. And the first one is Julen Lopetegui. Apparently, he turned down the Crystal Palace role when it was becoming available because apparently he's waiting in the wings to be offered the West Ham role. Do you believe that? I really don't know, to be quite honest with you. You know, I'm not even going to say whether it's right, wrong, indifferent or whatever, but it's an interesting story nonetheless. Lopetegui, 57 years of age. He's managed a number of clubs in his managerial career, primarily in Spain. He's also managed Spanish national youth teams, the Spanish senior team, Real Madrid, Sevilla, before moving to Wolverhampton Wanderers. He managed teams who have been in the Champions League, and despite financial constraints at Wolves, he led them to a respectable 13th place in the league last season. He's only won 1 trophy in his career as a manager, and that's the Europa League with Seville in 2020 when they beat Inter Milan 3-2. But if you remember that team, they were quite an exciting team. You know, they were the sort of team that you thought, wow, this is the sort of team that seems to be able to beat anyone. And they were doing it in style with quite a lot of flair as well. But what's interesting about Lopetegui, apart from that, is he's worked extensively with youth teams. He led the Spanish under-19s team to European champions, to become European champions in 2012. And the following year, led the Spanish under-21 team to become European champions again, as well, sorry. And so that's why I'm interested in Lopetegui, because he's got flair. He manages a team with flair. I think we all kind of know that he left Wolves because there were financial constraints and he didn't want to work under that. He'd have a field day, wouldn't he, at West Ham United with Sullivan splashing the cash the way he does. But he also uses youth. And I think that's really interesting in this manager. All right, a bit older than what you want, but does it matter? If he's got young ideas, it doesn't matter how old the manager is. He's only a couple of years younger than David Moyes. But I think he's interesting. And I don't know if it's true, but I think it's an interesting story and an interesting link. So watch out for that. And then, of course, the other one is what 1 or 2 people have already mentioned, and that's Thomas Tuchel. Now, I think he's a decent manager as well. 50 years of age. He's managed a number of top clubs around Europe, Borussia Dortmund, PSG, Chelsea, and currently Bayern Munich. And he's been successful in just about all of these clubs. You know, the German Cup with Dortmund, 2 league wins with PSG, runner-up in the Champions League with PSG, Champions League winner with Chelsea, and of course, last year he won the Bundesliga with Bayern. All right, this season's not going so well. And as someone has already said, there's a possibility that Bayern Munich are going to be sacking him at the end of this year. He's still got a contract till 2025, so they'll probably pay him off. Now, look, Tuchel, I think, is a very, very good manager. There's been other managers who have spoken about him. Guardiola, for example, saying an outstanding coach and manager with he's a very creative manager, someone I can learn from. Imagine Pep Guardiola, talking about another manager that he can learn from. He's renowned to be a perfectionist with his planning, and he's a strong communicator, very personable, something that the players would relish. But also, when he was at Chelsea, there's talk about him, the backroom staff, everybody knew him. He would always go and say hello to people, always engage with them, etc. Which wouldn't that be refreshing at West Ham United to hear that the manager gets on with people, not only the playing staff, but the backroom staff and all that sort of stuff. Plus, to have a manager like Tuchel who also knows Tim Steidten is another big benefit. And this is where the link comes in. Because apparently when Tuchel was at Chelsea, he wanted to bring Tim Steidten to Chelsea, but it didn't go through. For whatever reason, we don't know. Maybe it's because Tuchel himself was on his way out at that time. But he wanted Tim Steidten to come to Chelsea, but that didn't materialise. Imagine getting them connected now at West Ham. I think that will be a match made in heaven. He's an absolutely proven manager. He's demonstrated it with every club he's gone to. If he's that personable, imagine what some of the fringe players would feel like to have someone like Tuchel at West Ham. And on top of that, he uses youth, he uses quality players around him, etc. And I think he can bring the club together. Big catch, though, isn't it? He's not cheap. I don't know what he's being paid at Bayern Munich or any of the other clubs that he's managed, but I'm sure he's going to be a lot more expensive than David Moyes is. So that might be a small catch. But I think it's interesting. I think both those managerial links today are really interesting ones for all very different reasons. Lopetegui, as I said, because he's used youth, he's been at other clubs, etc. He hasn't had a great deal of success, but he's had a year at the Premier League, so he knows what it's all about. And given the finances that West Ham United can provide him with, who knows? Finishing 13th with Wolves last season wasn't that bad, to be quite honest with you, given that they had financial constraints. So let's see what he might be able to do with West Ham, and also having faith in the youth. And then Tuchel, he's demonstrated he's a winner. And the fact that other managers revere him, talk about him in high esteem, and the fact that he's personable, bringing in being able to engage with people all around, then we wouldn't get this whole thing with the fringe players feeling isolated in the way that we hear that they are under David Moyes. So I think they're two very, very interesting links indeed. Right, before I go into a roundup of news, let's go into your comments and get a few more in. How far behind am I? Not too bad. Espen, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Ain't necessary next level for quite a lot of the fans, I think. In the fight for Europe, as Moyes has delivered, but only with a better football would do a lot for us. But here's the thing, though, Espen, because when you hear a lot of comments from a lot of fans, originally it was all about Moyes can't get us to the next level. And I kept asking, especially earlier in the season, what's your interpretation of next level? That's what people kept saying. Next level, next level, next level. And I'm like, well, tell me what on earth next level is. Because next level for what we've been doing over the past couple of seasons, all right, we had a blip last season when we were fighting relegation, but finishing 6th, finishing 7th, etc., having done reasonably well until this calendar year, where we were 6th, all right, we slipped down to 9th now. What is next level? Because next level's got to be top 4, hasn't it? If that's next level, or continuously competing for Europe. But ironically, Moyes might get us back into Europe. Here's the irony. So I think I get your point, Espen, but I think some fans are expecting next level. Some fans are not going to be happy with just oh, well, we finished in sixth, etc. They want next level. Or is it next level because it's Moyes? Would we be happy if we got Lopetegui in or Tuchel in and we finish sixth constantly for the next 2 or 3 years? Will we be happy with that? I guess maybe, perhaps, because what we also want is the quality of the football as well. So I think there are two things there. Yes, you can have both. You can have good quality of football and you can have next level. But I think I questioned a couple of times in the past when fans are asking for next level, what does that mean? Certainly, Lopetegui, Tuchel, managers like that will certainly raise expectations again. But also, I understand they'll be bringing a very, very different brand of football to West Ham United as well, which will make fans a lot happier. Spencer, Sullivan and Moyes ain't going anywhere. Be prepared for a Sunderland next season. Obsidian, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Has Moyes gone yet? He's still here. Moyes, put the kettle on, mate. Montana, still, my only fear is that only we at West Ham always get these one-dimensional managers, either too offensive, Bilic, too passive, Pellegrini, too negative, Moyes. Still, why can't the board see it? I agree with you. But it's, who would be an owner of a club? Trying to bring in a manager that's right for the club. There are only a few managers around in the world that are the Peps of this world, the Tuchels of this world, etc. You can get someone that's up and coming. It may work, it may not. What's his name? Alonso at Bayer Leverkusen is having a fantastic season at the moment. Who's to say that will last? He might go next season. He might not win anything. He might finish mid-table. Ryan Pope, good evening to you. Perhaps Tim is bluffing to Sully. I don't know. I'd like to think so because we've seen all the stories, and I did a video about it last week where he was flattered by the attention from Liverpool, apparently, and all that sort of stuff. We've seen it all, but I'm not so sure. I mean, I think it might have been Daniela and one or two others have said, the transfer policy at Liverpool is not the Tim Steidten policy. They go for big name. They want to get big money signings in. They're not interested in bringing the next gem through or anything like that. They'd rather have the homegrowns from their academy for that. But they want to go and win. They want to buy success like most big teams do. Sweet FA, good evening to you. I wasn't going to renew my season ticket at the end of last season, but we won that cup, so I did. But if Moyes stays for next season, I'm off ski. Keep it, because if you've got points for your away games, you'll regret it. You will regret it. Bill, Rafael Marquez, Barcelona B, outsider, but a Tim-type young coach looking for a chance. Good shout. That I might have been mentioned a few weeks before. I'm not sure. But if there hasn't, that's a really, really good shout. Let's scroll down. Who else do we have? Mark. The names we would like are with clubs that will be in Europe next year or Champions League. They would leave. Would they leave for us? Well, Alonso Amorim, good shout. Probably not. But if Tuchel gets sacked, he might be interested in coming to a club like West Ham. Even if we're not in European football next season, he might go, it'd only take me a season to turn this round and get us back up there. So I get you. I think you're right. Alonso was never going to come to West Ham United. I don't think it was ever going to happen. I think there was a bit of a pipe dream, and even more of a pipe dream as he continues to do better at Leverkusen. Slot, Amorim, I agree. I totally agree. Why would they leave the comfort of getting into Champions League to come and manage West Ham United, who might not even be in Europe next season? Mandy C. A young, enthusiastic, progressive manager with ambition would be nice. Not asking for much, Mandy, but I get what you're saying. Toha, I thought the owners of Olympiacos had ownership in Forest too. They do. Have they got exclusive ownership in both? Probably. And I think given that they will never meet in a European competition, I think that's okay. I think with Kretinsky, and West Ham, I think, his club continuously get into Europe at some level. And the fact that West Ham have begun to do so as well, I think that's when it will become a little bit tenuous. Sharky. What about Carlos Tevez? He's a manager these days. I'm not one. No. I don't know how he's doing, to be quite honest with you. So, no. Man, don't. Imagine if we had Roberto in goal and not Areola this year. Fucking hell. God, no. Garino, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Sully won't get rid of Moyes as he wants out. Why would he bother dealing with it? Won't get rid of Moyes wants out. Who? Sully wants out? Sully ain't going anywhere, mate. Victor, Kretinsky would not buy West Ham. He's only interested in making money on his shares and not pumping millions into the club. He has put money into it, but it's an investment. But I agree with you, Victor. I said this. I remember when Kretinsky was buying into the club, and I kept being told, oh, he's going to buy us out, and, it's going to be all change, and it's going to be wonderful. We'd have finally got rid of Sullivan and all that sort of stuff. Kretinsky, and as I was being told back then, was never interested in buying West Ham United outright. He's got an opportunity. He can buy the gold shares, the 10% that are being sold. He hasn't made an approach. I'm not going to read that joke, Keith. Let's scroll down. Who else have we got here? GJ again. I went to the book. Oh, God. People, isn't it a bit earlier doing jokes? Shaky, that's understandable. What does Shaky say? All the names we want. Oh, yes, about the names we want. The clubs have first dibs. That is very true. That's very true. It'd be very difficult to go and get a manager that makes it into the Champions League next season. Man, don't. Blaming Sullivan for not backing Moyes in the window is not fair, but blaming him for not sacking him is. Imagine being David Sullivan. Imagine being David Sullivan and going, finally, they're off my back. I've given the manager the money. Let's go and, we've been in Europe a couple of years. Let's go and do things. Oh, fuck me, David Moyes. What on earth are you doing, mate? How can you waste so much money? And he must be pulling what's left of his hair out. Shaky. Yes, Mark, wouldn't be refreshing though to put this whole sorry saga to bed. It's Rice Mark II and tiring. It is tiring for the fan base to be talking about these sorts of things, isn't it? We seem to be hung on the negatives rather than any positives, and I know there aren't that many positives at the moment. Dad jokes. I finished my glass of wine at the restaurant. The waitress said, "Would you like another glass?" I said, "Why would I want two empty glasses?" Fucking hell. Spencer, can you wait until the end of the show so we can do a joke hour or something like that? Spencer, we don't need a West Ham Cluedo game. We know who done it. Sullivan, Brady, and Moyes done it. GJ, Yorkshireman, right? I'm not doing any more jokes. I'm sorry. You carry on amusing yourselves. Stell, you're spot on. Looks like the club from James does not want to move ahead, but the anchor is Moyes. Look, let's be honest. I think every owner of a club wants their club to progress. I think they do. I think Sullivan has proven it. Someone else said it earlier on. They have spent money. And I keep maintaining, in the past, they haven't spent money wisely. They brought Tim Steidten in order to spend the money wisely. We did really well with the money. Imagine how much that would have been wasted in the past, the Declan Rice money. We did really well. It's such a shame it didn't happen in January. Fuck knows why. Whether it was Sullivan's fault, Steiden's fault, or Moyes' fault, or a combination, it was such a mess. And it was really, really disappointing. But I do think they want the club to move forward. But I think now there's that procrastination, isn't there, James, with Steidten, who I think they want Steidten to take over fully, but they're not quite sure. Sullivan can never let go fully. Man, don't. Stell, your thoughts on Moyes out banner? I guess it was the only way we can show our frustrations, right? Look, yeah, I get it. I understand it. I get it. It's ironic, really. Last season seemed more appropriate, because we were doing really poorly in the Premier League. This season, the irony is we're not doing poorly in the Premier League, even though we've slipped down to ninth. I think, I think Martin must have said it or someone else said it. I think we could still finish in the top 6 or 7. I think there's a good chance we could sort of get through this period, which is not great, and then start building up again and winning a few games. Of course, it's going to take probably, some of our better players to come back from injury in order to do that. But everyone has a right to protest. Everyone has a right to do it in whatever way. Did I think it was worthy? They should have brought them out last weekend when we lost 6-0 to Arsenal. Garino. So Sullivan didn't back Moyes and didn't sack him either. I think he has lost all interest and wants out. Sullivan is really not going anywhere, people. Not just yet anyway. Good evening, Hammers Mikey. I hope you're well. I heard Moyes went home straight after the game and slapped his wife. Can't do that. I'm not reading the rest of that out. I hope you're well, Mikey. Black Country. Still, it started last season away to Wolves. Moyes out. Yeah, good point. It did start last season. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Al, good evening to you. You're spot on with that. What did Hammerette say? Whatever she said, you agree with. Let's scroll down. Who else have we got? Montana. Is he getting paid to lose these games or what? What is the point in praising a manager for doing the very least? We should be applauding him for exceeding expectations, not attaining them. Interesting point. Finn, I'd rather go vegan than have another season of this football. My other half's trying to make me not eat meat. You're not having that. Garino, can't see Sullivan dealing with this with Sporting. You can just imagine it. Give us your manager or we will borrow one from PSG. Daniel, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. I can see us sacking Moyes, then bringing someone out of work in like Potter, then going tits up. In comes Sully with I told you so. I really don't think that's going to happen. Cooper, absolutely, with the greatest respect to the man, absolutely no way. I think Potter, from what I keep being told, is that the board are not interested in Graham Potter. You know, Sullivan's view on Potter is that he worked to a system at Brighton, all this data analysis, which helped him, help Brighton get better players in, etc. And all Potter had to do was just turn up and coach them. So I don't think Sullivan is sold on Potter. And given that I don't think he's sold on Potter, I doubt very much he's going to be sold on Cooper. Hustle Crow. West Ham may as well go out on the field and hit a bong, a sativa for focus. I didn't understand that. Trini, the poor form won't continue because the players will up their game for the new manager. Right now, many of them cannot stand Moyes non-football. We're assuming that. But the irony, Trini, is that some of the players have come out and talked about Moyes in a positive way. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, of course they would. They're not going to diss the manager. But they don't have to come out and say anything at all, to be honest with you. Paul, your Wi-Fi worse than Saka and Mo Salah keep going down. I'm so sorry. I really am. How far behind am I? Not far. John, your arse must be sore from sitting on the fence still. Just come out and agree it's Moyes out. Not yet. Not yet. Give me a few more weeks. Still, in lockdown, only board members could attend games. Suddenly, Sully, Eve, Vorley got a board seat. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Man don't give. Jeff Stelling with Nicky Hawes this morning acted like an idiot. I didn't hear that. I read about it, but I didn't hear what was said. So I'll have to go and listen to that. Dexter, good evening to you, mate. Good bumping into you at the station. Likewise, mate. Where do we go from here? Reports of 4 games. Haven't we heard this all before? Just have to ride this uncertainty until the end of the season, unfortunately. As I said, I think the whole 4 games thing is rubbish, to be quite honest with you. I didn't believe it even when I got it and reported it. Sometimes you got to call out shit when it's shit. Because you're absolutely right, Dexter. We have been here before. It was something like if Moyes loses 6 games in a row, or if Moyes does this, or if he doesn't win this, etc. For me, as I've said several times over, I think one of the crunch points could come down to what happens in Europe in March. We've got 2 games coming up. We're going to know on Friday afternoon, who our opponents are going to be. God, that's come round quick, hasn't it? The second round of the playoffs, the knockouts are on this Thursday, and then Friday at midday is going to be the draw. So we're going to know on Friday afternoon who we're playing. My gut tells me if we get knocked out of the next round of Europe, I think Moyes could be told, thank you very much, and off you go. I've got that gut feeling that may happen. If we get through it and then we get ourselves to the end of the season, I think David Moyes won't be given a new contract, even though the preference at the moment is that the board will give Moyes a new contract. Lee, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Mikey, people moaning about a new manager, bad bounce. Can the football get any worse than it is already? Well, it could. Toffees and Palace are 1-1. Are they playing tonight? See, don't know what's going on. Lord Patrick, still, don't use Wi-Fi, use Ethernet cable, shouting to be seen. I know, mate, but the connection's downstairs and my stuff is upstairs. It's going to be a long Ethernet cable, but I think I might have no choice but to run one right across the house. Montana, still, a proactive board could have let Moyes go after the Frankfurt loss. We were running on empty in the second half. I think that would have been unfair, to be honest with you, Montana. I think that would have been the wrong message to get into a semi-final, etc. So close to getting to a final. I'm not so sure. A lot of people say he should have gone after the Prague win, and I think that would have been a good time. It would have been a good time for everyone. Dan Hunter, good evening to you. If Moyes can't win a game without Paqueta, and Paqueta won't be here next year, why would you keep Moyes? I'm not saying that I would, but you're absolutely right. I think he is reliant on Paqueta coming back, and it can't be a day too soon, can it? Black Country, can you imagine next Monday if we go 1-0 down and it's a poor performance? It's going to be pretty poor, to be honest with you. I'm worried about that. Keith, I agree still, but if a referee is intimidated by the players or fans into making a decision, then referee is not for him. Premier League refs are poor. I agree with you, but I think he was intimidated by the fans, the referee on Saturday. Maltese Hammer, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Doesn't look like Moyes will be going to Palace now. Doesn't look like Moyes. Because of, we knew that weren't going to happen, didn't we? Ralph, soon as Pardew even got Jim White to understand how we feel and why, will he tell Sullivan? Well, they are close. Sullivan is worried. Don't get me wrong. Sullivan knows what's going on. Sullivan sees what's going on. If you remember, Sullivan acted when we had all the protests a few years back, 6 years ago, and Sullivan but he made the wrong choice. Sullivan went and thought he was getting a top-class manager, and this is what we don't want. We don't want Sullivan to do another knee-jerk decision. Sullivan went and got Pellegrini, and that didn't go well, did it? What we want is, I'm hoping, given that Steidten's here, and I said this when we recruited Steidten, one of Steidten's remits is going to be about looking for a David Moyes replacement. Look, his contract comes to an end this season. The fact that we're not doing so well at this moment in time suggests that it's less likely that he'll get a contract than likely. I think the board want him to turn it round, David Moyes. I think they want him to prove that he can turn it round and get better. But there's a feeling that if it doesn't happen, then he won't be offered a new contract. And this is why I think I think Sullivan is taking note. He's not stupid. He'll have seen the banners. If it goes toxic next Monday night, he'll be there and he'll see that again. And the last thing he wants to try and have a good image with the fans. And it hasn't been, has it? Throughout his whole tenure, throughout the whole time that he's been owner of the club. So he will take note. But let's hope if we do protest, etc., if it does get toxic, and if Jim White has got his ear, that he takes note and does the right thing and uses Steidten to bring a new manager in. Espen, Liverpool will come in for Moyes in the summer. Better give him a contract now. Who else have we got here? Alfonso again. Was bringing Ings on in the 93rd minute against Forest the most ridiculous substitution he's ever made? Do you know what? I must have been walking out because I didn't even see that, to be honest with you. I didn't even see that. Mike, still, that's not Steidten. He goes for the up-and-coming managers. Good point. Yeah. Well, that is a good point. We believe he will go for an up-and-coming manager, but given that he's got a link to Tuchel, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Right. Apology. Critics see our current price tag, but we haven't felt the quality of the material. Good point. UAP, good evening to you. Monday needs to be an attacking performance on the front foot. Half the people in my WhatsApp group who sit in the Bobby Moore lower are walking out of the first half is negative. Well, I'm in the Bobby Moore lower. Don't leave me on my own there. Dexter, did you see Jeff on Talk Sport today talking rubbish? Jeff Stelling, how can the mainstream honestly come out with comments advocating Moyes say the moment? They don't know us Hammers' reality of what we watch. Yeah, it's a good point. I haven't listened to it. I'm going to have to catch up with that and see what was said. Mando, if the cup we won with Moyes counts as much as he thinks it does, we might as well lose every game and go down to League Two. Because remember, we won the cup, didn't we? Doesn't matter what we do from now on. And that's why I said earlier in the show, his comments after the game were like, don't do it, Moyes. Don't come out with, you're the best. I'm the best manager you've ever had. Well, I know he didn't say those words exactly, but sort of alluding to, I win, mate. We haven't won for 8 games. David, Moyes believes Bobby Moore statue should make way for him, as we have never had it so good. Trini, how far behind am I? I keep looking at my watch because I want to do. After this one, I'm going to do some other catch-ups, and then we'll go back to your comments. Trini, players are human beings. I don't get why any fan would expect a player to play under this guy to achieve what? Well, they're there to do a job, and they're there to try and do a job as good as they can. even if they don't always agree with the tactics. Hustle Crow. In all fairness, Zuma has had a knee injury and Moyes decides to play him in the current moment, but Zuma should know where to pass the ball. Agreed. He should be dropped, to be honest with you. Right, let's go on to some other comments, some other stories, and then I'll promise you it won't be long before I come back to your comments. Right, women's team. I didn't talk about all the other things that happened around West Ham last week after the 6-0 drubbing, but I'm going to do it this week. But I'll get through it as quickly as possible. After beating high-flying Arsenal 2-1 last week in the league, the West Ham women's team suffered their 9th defeat in the league this season, where they were beaten by 2 late goals from fellow strugglers, Everton. Everton went up on the 83rd minute, and then 3 minutes later, they sealed the game with a 2-0 win. Next up for the women's team is a tricky home game against 4th placed Man United in the league on the 3rd of March. Good luck to them. They could be going down, that team. The under-21s. After a surprising 2-0 defeat at home against Chelsea last week, the under-21s development team managed to get themselves back on track, where they drew 1-1 against current league leaders Spurs at the Spurs training ground on Saturday. We took the lead through Sean Moore on the 58th minute, but Spurs got their goal, their equaliser back on 10 minutes, and they were the first points that Spurs have dropped this season in the league. But with 4 more points than West Ham United, who are in second, as well as 2 games in hand over West Ham, it's their lead to lose for Spurs. Next up for the under-21s, West Ham is a game against 7th place Brighton this coming Friday. The under-18s, blimey, because I kept reading pop-ups coming up about the under-18s, and I thought, how can they keep playing games? They had 3 games in 8 days last week, the under-18s. Their first game was on 10th of February away to Fulham, where they won 4-3. This was followed up by a home game against Chelsea when they lost 3-2. And then on the 17th, they played 10th place West Brom, where they lost by an astonishing 5-2. The 2 defeats against Chelsea and West Brom have given their rivals a chance to overtake them in the league. They're currently top place. Chelsea are only 3 points behind West Ham, but they've got 3 games in hand over them. The under-18s next game is against 11th place Southampton this coming Saturday. Right, what other news have I got? A bit of loan news. Let's talk about some of our players who are out on loan, because 1 or 2 of them are doing pretty well. 7 West Ham United loanees were in action at the weekend. Goalkeeper Christian Heggie recorded yet another clean sheet for Den Bosch, chipping in with a spectacular penalty save on the hour mark. He earned his side a point against Jong AS Alkmaar. The 21-year-old has now recorded 4 clean sheets in 6 appearances at his loan spell to Dutch Eerste Division outfit FC Den Bosch. So well done to him. He's having a storming half of the season there. Saeed Benrahma, remember him? Was on he won. Saeed Benrahma played for Lyon, and they earned a 1-0 narrow victory against Nice. Benrahma featured for 74 minutes on the left wing as Lyon moved even further clear of trouble and simultaneously dealt a blow to Nice's chance of moving up to second, in League One. Jump that one. Let's go back. Dan Chester's. Thilo Kehrer. I forgot that one. Thilo Kehrer was in the AS Monaco side who fell to a defeat against Toulouse. Kehrer played the whole 90 minutes as Monaco was surprisingly beaten by relegation-threatened Toulouse 2-1. Dan Chester's lifted himself off the bench to help Salford City to a pulsating 5. I'm reading this. I didn't write it. 5-3 victory win over Barrow in the EFL League Two. Chester's entered the fray on 63 minutes to help Salford regain their lead 4 minutes later. Well done to him. Freddie Potts was involved for 78 minutes for Wycombe Wanderers when they played out a 0-0 draw against Oxford United in League One. Fellow loanee, and this guts me, fellow loanee Gideon Kodua was not involved in the weekend's match. I feel really gutted for Kodua because he's an excellent young player, and the last thing he should be doing is be sitting on the bench in a League One side. Gutted. But anyway, it is what it is. In the Championship, Callum Marshall had a cameo role off the bench for West Bromwich Albion on Friday who were defeated by Southampton. Flynn Downs didn't play the game because he's out injured at the moment. But good to see Callum Marshall getting some game time. Injury news. Well, we've only got one injury to worry about, haven't we? And that's Lucas Paqueta. He was back in training at the end of last week on grass, but unfortunately, the Nottingham Forest game came a little bit too soon. There's an expectation that he might return to action against Brentford at the London Stadium next Monday night. I hope so, because we have missed him immensely. Right, back to your comments. Jonathan, the board only have to keep it simple, make decisions properly, back their manager when needed, let Steidten do his job without hindrance. I totally agree. Daniela, I agree with the wider team playing with a lack of effort, so surely down to the players. Look, I think so too. I think the players have got to take some responsibility for the lack of effort. There's one or two players that are not turning up at the moment, but then if I'm David Moyes, I should be dropping those players, to be quite honest with you. Mando, your mate's analysis the other day was brilliant. Moyes needs to allow us to pass the halfway. Wiggy is convinced that Moyes tells the players not to go past the halfway line. He is absolutely convinced by that. No one will tell him otherwise. Mark, after the dreadful January window, there is very little competition for places now. So most of the players know that however bad they play, they will stay in the team. That's a really, really good point, to be honest with you. Really good point. Mike, who drinks Prosecco? Prosecco. Espen, agree on Ogbonna. Had a good game against Arsenal and has barely played since. Another weird decision by Moyes. If you think about what happened over the last few weeks, when David Moyes had very few players to select from, he played Ben Johnson in central midfield. He hasn't played that again. He played Ings as a number 10 and did well. Hasn't done that again. And then Ogbonna had a storming game against one of our best players on the pitch when we beat Arsenal 2-0, and he's not played since. I don't understand it. I do not understand it. Domby, don't get why Moyes sticks with Zuma constantly. Oggy may be getting on, but his legs are not shot to pieces. Absolutely agree. Let's see. GJ. I remember the Man United game when Kenny Brown scored and we won 3-1. What a great game. That was real football. Lee, thank you. By the way, if you're new to the channel, I've got over 360 people watching. I'm absolutely honored and thank you. But if you are new to the channel, it's your first time, please do hit the like button. Please do hit the subscribe button. And also, if you like me going on and droning on, you can hit the bell notification to let you know when my next show is on. So please do that. Doesn't cost you anything. I'll never charge for my content. Good grief. If I started charging, I wouldn't have anyone. I wouldn't have any viewers. But in all seriousness, doesn't cost you anything. So please do hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell notification. Who else have we got? Hammerett. I'd rather we get a young manager, to be fair. Lopetegui is only a couple of years off Moyes, but it's not so much your age, it's your attitude, isn't it, to be honest? Who else have we got? Jonathan. Lopetegui has a habit of offering himself to teams. Did it with Spurs whilst at Wolves. Did it in Madrid and so on. Yeah, it could be a short term, that one, couldn't it? Bill. Lopetegui sat for bad performances from 3 clubs. There you go. Daniel. Not too sure how reliable the Scottish journo Alan Nixon is, but he's adamant Moyes will be signing a new contract. I don't think anyone can be adamant about anything, to be honest with you, Daniel. And that's the honest truth. I think it really is in the balance, as I said earlier in the show. I think if Moyes turns it around and not only turns it around in terms of wins, but also turns it around in the style of football, there's every chance the board will go, thank God for that, here's your new contract. If he just turns it around and the football is still pretty turgid and the fan base is still unhappy with him, I think the board will go, thank you, David. But as I said earlier, I think if we don't get past the next stages of Europe, there's going to be the board are going to get a little bit tense, because all of a sudden, if we do not get through the next stages of Europe, I don't expect that we're going to win the Europa League. Please don't think I'm deluded, but that's still a chance. If we do get to the final and we win it, there's still a chance of getting us into Europe for another season. So if that's out the window, all the board will be looking at is the league position. is David Moyes going to be able to get us back up high enough in the league to finish in a European place again? And if we go out of Europe, I think that might knock the stuffing out of us, and the board may decide to act. Rupert, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Nice to see you, of course. After all, it was your last game, Rupert, until the next one. As I said to you earlier, Burnley at home is a sellout to coincide with Moyes' 4th game deadline. Funny that. Well, this 4-game deadline, I really don't believe it. But anyway, Sharky, he was sacked as Spain's head during the Euros after it was announced he was going to be taking the Real Madrid job. They got rid of him a few months later. Hustle. Lopetegui is definitely a fringe player, youth player, powerhouse, high-minded when it comes to playing our tables. Seems that a bit mixed on Lopetegui. Trini, if you cannot win the league with Bayern, something got to be wrong. Look, that's because other teams, once in a while, remember Leicester, come out of nowhere and do the business. Bayer Leverkusen are doing just that. Lee, GJ, now mate, family from Bow. I grew up in Milton Keynes, now live in Devon. Now it's become a geography show. Lord Patrick, Tuchel looks like the bloke that... Jonathan, all these are managers. This smells like fake news or Sullivan and Co. Steidten will be going for coaches, not managers. Good point. Good point. And I don't think it's Sullivan that's putting those names out. Trust me, mate. There are enough people in the social media world that will be happily putting names out. And there'll be last week there were 2 others. This week there are 2 different ones. I had no doubt that next week there'll be 2 other ones as well. Who else have we got? Mark. Anyhow, now you know what? Do you know what? I was thinking to myself earlier today that Newcastle United are not doing as well as they kind of hoped, and I was thinking to myself, Eddie Howe is a manager who could be out of a job at the end of this season, and I would put a cheeky little bet on Eddie Howe being approached to become the next West Ham manager. Now, when he was at Bournemouth, I remember people talking about Eddie Howe then and going, "Oh, he's great, we should have him." And I was like, I'm not so sure. I'm really not sure that Eddie Howe will be the right sort of person for us at West Ham. I think he's demonstrated that he's good. All right, he's not having the greatest of times at the moment, but I think he's demonstrated that he can play decent football with a decent football team. And he could do better. And it would not surprise me. I wouldn't mind putting a cheeky little bet on Eddie Howe becoming West Ham United's manager next season if Newcastle let him go. Sharky, I bet Harry Kane can't believe what's happening at Bayern. He thought he would win the league for certain there. There you go. Grass ain't always greener, is it? Who else have we got here? Trodge. Next level is showing ambition when in a prime position in January. Fair play. Montana, Tuchel and Lopetegui are also not good with fringe players still or players they don't want in the squad. Massive no for both. Give me an unknown still. Okay, I'll come up with 1 or 2 unknowns next week. Matthew, Moyes has pretty much destroyed our wider squad. We need someone who can work with Steidten on a proper rebuild, integrating some youth. Results not so important. We need long-term structure and plan. I like that comment, Matthew, but be really, really honest. If we went for another manager and we don't have any success, not in Europe, not, finishing, I don't know, let's say top 8, something like that in the league for 2 seasons whilst the rebuild is happening, honestly and truly, would we be happy as a fan base? I'm really, really not sure. I'm really not sure if fans would be. Kevin Woods, good evening to you. Next level is finishing 5th, 6th or 7th, but playing decent progressive football. So finishing the same positions as we have done over the past few years, but playing a very different type of football. Brilliant. I'll buy that. Trodge, I believe us as a club not showing ambition in these windows led to us losing best players. I think we're going to have to get used to losing our best players, to be honest with you, Trodge. I think under Steidten, I think we're going to be getting players in, Kudus, Alvarez, etc. They'll stay with us for a season or 2, and then what we'll do is we'll sell them at top price in order to bring other players in. It's the Brighton model that I've kept alluding to. I think that's what Steidten will be planning for West Ham. But I don't mind that if we've got a ready-made replacement for the player that goes. Trini, it's not even about quality of football. Just give everyone a go. Give every game a go. Fair play. Pat Holland fan, I haven't seen you for a while. I hope you're well. We think we expect next level because we're capable and we're close to top 4. See, personally, I absolutely love us to be in the top 4, but I don't think we're that close, anywhere near close yet. Shaky, even if we do get a more progressive manager. Tony Cottee hit the nail on the head, Shaky. Will not change until Sullivan is gone, then will not change, full stop. Robin Irons, next level is to win the FA Cup or League Cup with an exciting team. That I would love. I would love to win a domestic cup. About time, isn't it? About time that we won a domestic cup. Barry Edwards. The last 3 years, the second part of the season have been crap because of the January windows. Really good point. Absolutely spot on there. Good evening, Grasham. I hope you're well. Despite media, pundits, and other club fans calling out our critical fans, I doubt if he were available, Dave would be killed in the rush. A good point. You know, they're calling us out, but would they have him? Who knows? Anthony, good evening to you. How many years do the loyalty points remain on your account for, or do they drop off? You keep buying you keep buying the away. No, they drop off at the end of each year. Start again. So the points you accumulate this season will be the points you start with next season. So the points you accumulated the season before go. So every season, you've got to keep topping them up. Try and get as many away games as you can, all the cup competitions, etc., in order to build up your points. Andrew, too many cowards in the media, too frightened to ask the hard questions. Good point. They don't sit. And then when Moyes is asked something a little bit difficult, he usually gets a little bit angry, doesn't he? Shaky. Bayer Leverkusen still unbeaten. What a turnaround for them considering where they were. The True Culture. Good evening to you. I hope you're well. Just joined the stream. Question: if you got a chance to pick the next West Ham coach, who would you pick and why? Well, I was given a challenge to go and pick a more of an unknown coach, so I'll be looking into that over the next week or so. But I did earlier today, earlier in this show, talk about can't remember who I talked about, Lopetegui and Thomas Tuchel, and I talked about some of the qualities that they both have. Some people, and rightly so, have contested those qualities, and that's what this show is about. But of the two, if I was given a choice between Tuchel and Lopetegui, I think I would go with Tuchel, to be honest with you. Shaky, we'll end up with Alice Cooper. What a halftime show, though. How far am I? Oh, I keep falling behind, so I'm going to have to try and move on. Sullivan, WHUFC, good evening to you. Sullivan has one simple job. Give all duties to Steidten. If it doesn't work out, us fans can take the blame, but it's what we all want to see. Fair play. Fair play. I agree with that. Ayok, good evening to you. I would love Kevin Keane until the end of the season. Reckon would be a Johnny Lyle resurrection. That's a really good shout. Kevin Keane has been a temporary coach a couple of times. I don't think he managed any games, but he was called in, wasn't he? A couple of times whilst we were in between managers. The Bowling Lounge, good evening to you. Good evening to you. Hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Corky, good evening to you. Looking forward to Steidten cooking up a storm with a new first-team coach without Moyes pissing on the ingredients. David M. How can West Ham spend 450 million and still make them the oldest and smallest squad? I'm bemused by that. As I talked about many times before, we were cock-a-hoop, weren't we, last summer when we bought all these players in. And we're like, wow, look at all the players we've got, added to the players we already had the season before. And then it just all, God knows what happened. UAP, just before my uncle died, we covered his back in lard. After that, he went... Oh, dear, Sharky. I should call this the comedy hour. I should cut off talking about football. We just have comedy jokes. The joke half hour. Sharky. Brentford play against Man City tomorrow, so hopefully one or two of their players gets a red card. GJ. Mark Goldberg bought Bromley Football Club and he became their manager. The club is in the next street from me. I don't think he owns a club now. Not sure. So that went well then. Shaky. Steidten's brother has only just been made head of international recruitment. Doesn't sound like someone's leaving. Yep. I said that earlier on, Shaky, and I did a show last week about both Moritz Steidten and Maximilian Hahn as the new data analyst. It doesn't sound like Tim Steidten is about to go, does it? Jonathan, a Greek not eating meat is like a German not having sausage. I don't know where you were all coming from. Hammerit, the players do have a bit to answer for, to be fair, but they just looked so uninterested and withdrawn from the fight. Drop them, to be honest. Bowling Lounge, I don't fancy Potter because it was the data analyst that made Brighton successful. Said that earlier on. You're absolutely spot on. Then ignores the data that might make West Ham better. Genius. Well, that's why we've got a new data analyst in. How can you... A lot of things tell me that we're going in the direction that David Moyes doesn't want to go. A lot of things tell me. Tim Steiden's brother, Max Hahn, who is the data analyst, etc. A lot of things suggest to me that we're going in that direction and David Moyes is going in that direction. So I think, okay. Here's one. I do think the board have made their minds up, but they can't announce it yet. Of course they can't, because they need David Moyes to get us through the rest of this season, which is why I keep coming back to the whole issue about Europe. And if we go out of Europe, I think that will make their minds up sooner. I think the board, all this thing about procrastinating and, and if he improves things, etc. I think quite possibly the board have made their mind up, but they can't turn around at David Moyes and go, carry on, lad, until the end of the season when you know you're not going to be here. They can't do that, can they? And also, if you remember, the first time Moyes was here, when he took over from Bilic and he was a caretaker manager for 6 months or however long, they did tell him he wasn't going to get a job at the end of it when they brought in Pellegrini. And I don't think they're brazen enough to actually do that to David Moyes again, or are they? Bill, apology still, has had grandkids last night and all today. Knackered, we'll catch up with the rest of the show tomorrow. Only got to take them to school night. Mate, do what you have to do. Good night and thank you for watching and taking part, mate. Much appreciated. Juha, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mates. Lord Patrick, he won't get sacked before all the cups are over for us. I've said this all year. Agree. Black Country, it needs a clean sweep and refresh from top to bottom. Apart from the owners, they're not going anywhere. NWO, we don't look like we can win a game. Europa League doesn't look good. It worries me. Andrew, next season, I want to see Zuma, Antonio, Cresswell, Soufal, Souček, Ings, Cornet, and Moyes gone. Zuma, who's going to buy him? Antonio, fuck me, we should have sold him a couple of years ago, to be honest with you. I had an argument on someone on Twitter, and I don't go on Twitter much. But, someone said something about, and I said, so we have to respect Antonio because he's our top goal scorer in the Premier League. Oh, that means you don't respect. It's not that I don't respect him, but my God, he's one. Did you see what happened in the game on Saturday when he was going off, when he was substituted? He didn't come round to the West Ham fans to applaud them. He went the other way and got applauded by the Nottingham Forest fans. Cresswell, end of contract. Soufal, currently end of contract, but might be extended. Souček has just had his fucking contract extended by another 4 years. Ings, who's going to buy him? Cornet, who's going to buy him? He's cropped. Moyes, possibly. Yep, gone. Alfonso, sad news from West Ham. David Moyes has been spotted alive well at the London Stadium. Mandone, I'm sorry, but I can't blame the players when they played out of position. Some of them never even played, and when they clearly have no patterns of play that they should. Look, Agurd's not being played out of position. He's played really, really poorly. Zuma's not being played out of position, and he's just crocked. There's one or two other players around that are not being played out of position. Ironically, the players that are being played out of position are putting more effort in than the players that are being played in the right positions. Cyclops, good evening to you. I'm fed up with Sully, Moyes, pundits, doom and gloom. Yeah, I can't stop watching YouTube. You come to the right place. I hope you're well, and thank you for joining and commenting. Hammerstad, good evening to you. I look forward to you getting a phone in. Any update on that? Oh, mate, I've got a bit more money saved. I've just got to now just bite the bullet and buy the stuff. Trying to get my daughter to, she's the bloody tech guru. I keep asking her, help me do this. Oh, yeah, I'm busy. So I will. I will make it a point that I'll try and do it over the next month or so. I promise you. I really will, because I'm going to go back to doing Friday nights. I don't know if I'll do the West Ham Weekly as a phone in, or maybe a little bit of it, but certainly Friday nights. If I can get the phone in set up, it'll be Friday night phone in. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? Paul Warren. Moyes should have left on a high now. It's just a bitter taste to watch each game. It's like Moyes has been found out and players look a shadow of themselves. Juha. We should have developed AI to coach our team, and it could just take user comments and use it to buy players and set up teams. Problem solved. I like that. Use modern technology to do all the coaching work, etc. Anthos. Evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Let's hope Steidten's a smokescreen for Liverpool nabbing Moyes. Surely we're not the only ones that get it wrong. Lord Patrick. We get Milan. I'm going. Ticket or no ticket. Once in a lifetime for us. Yeah. Where you're. No, I won't say it. Man, don't. Can't blame the players. Firstly, they played out of position. Secondly, some barely even play. And the third, said that already. But I think some players do have to take responsibility. Black Country. Oh my God! When that starts Thursday, Sunday with our squad. Sorry, disaster. What when Europe is back again? I know. It's going to be interesting. UAP. My gut tells me we get another shocking performance on Monday night. The ground empties at half time and he gets sacked Tuesday lunchtime. Anthos. Moyes must be the only dick of a manager that thinks he can make do with 15 players competing for Europe, Premier League and Cups. It is annoying. It really is more. I won't deny it. You know, it's like flabbergasting. And I kept saying before the January window opened, let's not make the same mistake as we did 2 years ago when we didn't get anyone in. Well, the difference is we did get someone in. We got one player in and we let 4 go, if you include Connor Coventry. It's like, why? Hammer it. Brentford got a bit of a battering against bin dippers, so there's hoping City stuff them too before our match. Let's hope so. Who else have we got? Let's try and scroll down. Mikey's got a question. Another 10 years of Premier League, Moyes ball or relegation for 3 seasons and then coming straight back up. Oh my God, mate. You know, what an option. Some interesting grounds in the lower leagues, aren't there? Man, don't give. Jeff proved that these pundits take a quick look at the table and make up an argument. This is Jeff Stelling. He even got that wrong today, as Nicky had to correct him that we were actually 9th and not 8th. Is that what he said? Oh, great. Hammer it. I've still got hope that when Sully has sold that ridiculous 7-story mansion in London, he will F off away from our club. Keep hoping. It won't happen. Highly unlikely. The Bowling Lounge. Mark, if you can grab a beer on the fridge too, please. I need a drink as well, to be quite honest with you. Actually, I'm going to have a little drink here. Not beer, unfortunately. It's a Monday night. Got work tomorrow. And no, it's not Prosecco either. Keith, it's rather amazing how us men can pay to watch West Ham lose 6-0 at home, but criticise and take the piss at the women's team beating Arsenal. Fascinating. I wasn't taking the piss. Hammers Mikey. Zuma always looks like he's doing Michael Flatley's Lord of the Dance routine every time the ball comes into his feet. Mate, he ain't got that sort of movement. Trust me. How long we got? Right. I've got to catch up because we've done an hour and 40 minutes. So do forgive me. I'm going to skip quite a few. Ray Palmer. Can anyone remember when Moyes ever changed the game with subs? He has no management skills whatsoever, neither game management or man manager. That's a good point. 6 times 9. Can even Danny Paqueta on grass. First the betting scandal and now drugs. Gary J. Hello, mate. I hope you're well. As far as managers are concerned, I'd be over the moon to get Tuchel, pay him. Also, I was sad to see Bilic go. I liked him. Pyatt screwed him over. He lost his way, didn't he, when Pyatt decided to leave? I won't lie to you. I wouldn't mind Tuchel, to be honest with you. I think he'll bring us a bit of success, and I think he'll bring flair football. I really do. Robin, Johnson playing centre midfield. The thought of Souček playing a full 90 minutes as static traffic cone depresses me. Who was surprised that Souček was dropped for the game on Saturday? I tell you, I was absolute. I couldn't believe it. I kept looking at the lineup and going, no Souček in the lineup. What's going on? Joe Wand. West Ham, we have a chance of winning the Europa League. Bayer Leverkusen, so you have chosen death. I don't understand. Joe Wand, Bayer Leverkusen, so you have chosen death. Uh, I don't understand. You have to explain that. Sorry, mate. Paul, playing the way we are and the style we won't keep the players we've got for long. They will all want out. Graham, if the board give Moyes a new contract, it will show just how poor their football acumen is. That's a really good point. Excuse me 1 second. Thank you, people. I haven't come to these yet, but I can see that there's GP, £2, best channel on YouTube. Forget West Ham. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Gary, $10, everyone out. Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. Anton, is that Anton? Everyone out, $1.99. Thank you very much. And Aok, appreciate your thank you very much. Thank you, people. You know, I don't expect them, never ask for them, but I really appreciate you all giving me a few donations there. So, God, bit more, and I'll be able to buy a bottle of rum. Oh, I mean, I'll be able to buy that stuff that I need for a phone in. Adam, it's hard to get a great manager. Most are taken or looking for bigger, and it's still a risk. Nothing is surefire. We could all be shooting ourselves in the foot. We could be. But I think a lot of people have agreed now that we really kind of need to move on, don't we? Baldrick, good evening to you. No Eddie Howe. He's struggling. No Potter. He's mid-table. I agree with Potter. I don't know. Eddie Howe? GJ, Newcastle have so many injuries and Howe is hanging in there. I love the way he treats people. Decent human being. There we are. They've turned up now. Thank you, GP. I really, really do appreciate that. Alfonso, there's more chance of us not winning a single match between now and the end of the season than there is of Moyes turning things around. No, we'll win a few. We'll win a few. Stephen, why will a rebuild take 2 seasons? Look at Villa. We've, ironically, Stephen, have been rebuilding for the last 4 seasons. Almost every summer transfer window, we need, you know, how many did we get in last season? We got in... how many did we get in last season? We got 5 players in last season. The season before that, we got 7 in. It seems that there's a continuous rebuild. Andrew, Sullivan will need restraining from contacting Rafa Benitez. He's had a hard on for him for years. Danny, Southgate going after Euros. How probably favourite for England? No. Okay, yeah, interesting. Montana, Eddie Howe's definitely next level. Achieved Champions League with a lesser budget than ours and improved players massively, bringing in. Jonathan, with over 8 players leaving in the summer, not seeing any ready-made replacements for Paqueta and so on, there will be a rebuild required. You know, absolutely. Unfortunately, we're going to need to replace quite a few players, either because they're out of contract or because they're going to be sold anyway, or for a number of reasons, it's going to be a need. Anton, it is you, Anton. I thought it was. You didn't look familiar for a minute. Any manager under our ownership will have a problem, in my opinion. Well, we've got the owners, and they're not going anywhere quick. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Will they sell up? I don't think they will. Mandone, one day, just one day, I would love to see Di Canio managing us. It would be carnage, but brilliantness. Okay, I'm glad you qualified that. Lee, if we can dream of a manager, I'll take out of a job after the Euros. Julian Nagelsmann, good shout. Yeah, good shout. Interesting shout. Hammer it. It's going to be a massive rebuild in the summer, just for an out of contract players. Add our best players to that, and we're going to be screwed. Well, we will rebuild, but we're going to need a manager that's going to be able to manage that rebuild sooner rather than later. Let's scroll down. Gary, thank you very much, mate. Really, really much appreciated. And also to you, Anton, really much appreciated as well. Tight Scots. Andrew, Kelvin Phillips could finish Moyes' tenure at the club if he continues to play like a Yorkshire pudding. Daniel, find it crazy that 6 weeks ago the board were all up for a new contract. Now they are not. This feels like flip-flopping at its best. Montana, Stel, Masuaku scored a goal for you again in the AFCON. Good luck to him. This is level. You know, oh, mate. He was one player that wound me up no end. Joe, at this point, watching live streams of a West Ham match on YouTube is better than actually watching it on TV. Anthony, I hope Phillips works out, but he has a whiff of the Lee Boyers and Robbie Keane signing about him. Good call. James, Tuchel, Dortmund, Chelsea, Bayern, and struggling West Ham. You Moyes outers need to come up with less than delusional solutions pronto. After you've hit the like button, of course. Ayok, thank you, mate. £2. Really, really, I do appreciate it. Thank you, people that have contributed. I really, really do appreciate it. Joe, signing a striker is our main priority. Just move Bowen to the right, put Kudus in the middle, and get that striker. See, I think we've got a ready-made replacement for Paqueta when he does leave in the summer, and I think that will be Kudus. Bowen back out on the right, but we've got to get a left-sided player in, and we've got to get a striker, haven't we? Trini, what's Moyes' football philosophy and what tactics did he employ in the wins we got? Well, you could see it, and he's trying it again. Counter-attack. We were very good at the counter-attack. When we were doing exceptionally well, we were playing a masterclass counter-attacking football. And I said this before. When we had Lingard, he would always leave Lingard hanging a little bit further up. Even if we were under attack, Lingard would do hardly any defending. He'd come back, but nowhere to the point of what some of the other attacking players were doing. And by him hanging sort of a bit further out, it gave us an option, and Lingard had the pace, etc. Before Lingard, it used to be Anderson's job to do that. If you look at, go back to the season when Moyes came in and we were fighting relegation, and Yarmolenko scored that winner against Chelsea. If you look at what happened there, Anderson was a little bit further forward, and when the ball broke, we had an outlet. That was Moyes' classic counter-attacking football. We don't do that anymore. We don't have any players hanging just a little bit further forward. Moyes wants them all to be behind the ball. So when the ball breaks loose, we've got no one available to do that counter-attacking football. That's what's missing. I don't mind not having the ball for 80% of the game and stuff like that, if we make the 20% count. The unfortunate thing is, Moyes has got in his head that everybody's got to defend. So when it comes to the ball breaking away for us, we've got no outlet. That's the big difference, Trini. What we had before, we had a classic counter-attacking system where there was always a player or two just hanging back, much further up the field than being in our 18-yard box. He doesn't do that anymore. And I don't understand it. I don't get why he's changed that, and it was so successful. Yes, teams have found us out, but if you've got a player further forward, the defenders have got something to worry about. The defenders have got someone that they've got to mark, but we don't have that. We seem to be like everyone needs to be behind the ball, and that's the thing that's changed quite dramatically from what he had before. Andrew, the trouble with bringing someone like Tuchel in, he would think he's doing us a huge favour, another arrogant tool. Keep the arrogant. What would you rather have, an arrogant Moyes or an arrogant Tuchel? You answer me that. Brian, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. I'm nervous that we sack Moyes after Burnley. New manager has a week to get his team together. Well, whenever it will be, I keep thinking, I've got it in my head. I can't get it out of my head that if we go out of Europe, that might be the turning point for David Moyes. Corky, thought Johnson had been our best player in a poor performing side. Why was he dropped? I agree. I think he's been one of our better players over the last few weeks. But it's going to be interesting now that Antonio's back and with Paqueta imminently back, who else David Moyes will drop. I was very surprised that Souček was dropped. Will he keep dropping him? And then who else? All right, Phillips is unavailable for the next game. But Phillips aside, would he drop Ward-Prowse and Souček in the next games? Jonathan, Nagelsmann is current German manager, but you heard it here first. Klopp will be the next German manager. Just will it happen that quickly? For suiting us is unlikely. Good point. Yeah. But then where would Nagelsmann go? I guess Liverpool might be interested in him. Clive, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. I would send you some money, but I think David Sullivan needs it more. Don't worry, mate. I don't need it. Ray, knowing Sullivan is probably waiting for Southgate next season. Oh, God help us. Robin, can we have some diversity on free kicks, corners instead of JWP? Kudus takes a mean free kick and Bowen great on corners. He's not done well, has he, JWP, lately on his corners and free kicks? Jonathan, Moyes expects us to have 8% conversation ratio on our shot targets, which is insane. We only get 4 or 5 at best. Conversion ratio on 80%. Eric, Lingard was excellent for us. Apparently, he was great to have around the training ground as well. I can see why Moyes wanted him back, but it's just a shame that he thought he was too big for us as well. Trini, so has he regressed? Yes, yet we are meant to give him a new contract. No, I think he has. I think, tactics now have been found wanting. it's ironic, isn't it, that David Moyes talked about, the last third of the park being where we weren't creating anything, and yet all that's drummed into the players, or so we're told, is the first two-thirds of the park. Defend, defend, defend. It seems that they forget there's a final third as well. Trodge. Moyes, the love-struck fool, betrayed by his two true loves, Lingard and Phillips, HH11. Can someone explain to me why on earth Kudus is being played on the left? I agree. I actually said in my post-match review that Kudus is likely to have played on the left side of attack in a competitive game twice in his career. Arsenal and the game against Nottingham Forest. You're absolutely right. Dan, yes, thank you, mate. Do hit the like button, please, people. And if you're new to the channel, do subscribe as well. Robin. Moyes tic-tac after 5-0 defeat against Everton. God, that makes me shake. E. Davis. Nagelsmann is way too outspoken for Sullivan. He's afraid of a stronger manager. Andrew, on current form, Bowen, Phillips and JWP are getting nowhere near the England side. Henry Richards, Daniel Kretinsky would even get rid of Moyes. He does not like what is going on at the club. Talked about that much earlier in the show, Henry. And here's the catch with that. Daniel Kretinsky, as I've said many a time, is an investor. He's not interested in the football side. He's investing money, and whilst it's making him money, he'll continue to invest money. If Daniel Kretinsky was really interested in taking over West Ham or changing the nature of what happens, who might be the next manager, etc., he could go and buy Vanessa Gold's 10% shares that are currently up for sale, which have been up for sale for quite some time. That would take Daniel Kretinsky's holding at West Ham United to 37%. And then he might start having a bit more sway than he currently does. He's not interested in buying the 10%. All right, I know he's got shares in a club in the Czech Republic as well. But having said that, Kretinsky is only there for the money. So I've seen that story just before I came online tonight. And I kind of said, not so sure about that. Don't hold up too much hope about Kretinsky being unhappy, because Kretinsky is there as a shareholder only. Question, Joe, from Joe. Who will win the Europa League between these two, Leverkusen or Liverpool? Well, we'll be in the final, so neither of them. There you go. Hustle. I think if we go panic mode, willy-nilly, get anyone with a 50-50 glass, half empty, half full, on any decision period. If you have to show yourself worthy, you're not worth the contract. Yeah, good call. That's it. I've come to the bottom. So why don't we finish with just the final few points on the game at the weekend? And then you can give me some more comments. So some of the notes I've got on the game at the weekend against Nottingham Forest. Poor team selection again. It seems to me that Moyes did half of the... I suggested that I would like to have seen Calvin Phillips start alongside Alvarez. And he did that. And I said that I thought that Antonio would start. Not that I necessarily wanted Antonio to start, but I think needs must. And I knew, and I saw that happen as well. I think where Moyes let himself down was our central defence. Zuma has been said by quite a few people. His legs have gone. And Agurd, to me, doesn't look necessarily... The irony, Agurd looked better when we went down to 10 men. He looked better as a kind of the wing-back. You know, he was getting down that flank and getting the crosses in, etc. But I think the team selection was poor. As we all know, the performance itself was lackluster. We kind of expected a response after the 6-0 drubbing against Arsenal, but that didn't materialise. Antonio, all right, fresh. Come back after a long injury. He had a couple of decent chances, though, especially the one where he got the ball into the 18-yard box and the young defender, Murillo, the Brazilian 21-year-old defender, took the ball off him so easily. Kudus and Bowen were snuffed out of the game throughout the whole game. Nottingham Forest's tactics were very simple. As soon as the ball goes anywhere near those two, crowd them out, and that's exactly what they did. Someone said it a moment ago. Kudus on the left. You know, pointless, absolutely pointless. He doesn't play that position. He's never played that position in his entire senior career. And all of a sudden, David Moyes thinks he's the answer to our left side of attack. Didn't work. Kudus came alive when everything changed. Antonio went on the left. Bowen got in the middle. and Kudus went out on the right, and Kudus started to get more into the game. Very few chances created. I think we had 3 shots on target, most of which looked like back passes. We didn't seem to be playing with any conviction. It was disappointing, but understandable to see the Moyes out banners. And Moyes' post-match comments was like a red rag to a bull. Right, few more comments and then we'll go. Usual. Sorry, Keith. Usual, talking to usual. My singing sounds like a fire in a pet shop. I'm a bass player stuck at the back where I belong. So we've gone from jokes to talking about music. I love this show. Andrew, 3-1 to Brentford. No, mate, please don't make me have a bad week. Graham, we will be in the final. Stella, you sure you're not drinking? Water. Yes. All right. Maybe. Joe, I'm a head out. I'm a head out. Just subscribe, and this is very entertaining channel. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for taking part. Thank you for joining. Thank you for commenting. Really, really appreciated. Paul, yes, Moyes plays Cornet on the left and takes all the credit. Why didn't he play Cornet on that? Well, he should have brought him on sooner before we got a sending off. That was the other thing I should have put in my notes. David Moyes was going to bring Maxwell Cornet on around 60, 62 minutes. Cornet had his training top off. He was ready to go. And then he was told to sit down. Then he was told to get up. And then he was told to go and warm up again. By that time, in those moments, Calvin Phillips got sent off. If David Moyes had put him on at the time when he wanted to put him, he was going to make 3 subs. He was going to take 3 players off, take 3 players on. And one of them was going to be Phillips. If he'd have done it, we would have finished the game with 11 players. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, the substitutions might have made a difference. Andrew, good night, Stel and fellow Hammer. Good night, Andrew. Thank you for joining, mate. Much appreciated. Hustle. Am I crazy or did I see us with some momentum in the first 11 minutes? I must be hitting the ball on the pitch. Just signed a Moyes contract. We started off okay, fell away. We finished okay. Ironically, we looked better when we had a 10 players than we did when we had 11 players. Lynn, Moyes should be sacked just for playing Zuma. Just my opinion. Good night to you, Shaky. Much appreciated. Paul, Dinos and Agerd are a pairing, I think, still. Johnson for Soufal, Cornet on the left. I don't mind seeing Dinos and Agerd, but I want to see more effort from Agerd, to be honest with you. I really do. Mark, Trodge, can you imagine how much would that keep the debate going? What did Trodge say? I want to see what Trodge... It's too far up. So forgive me, Trodge. Can't see what you said. Man, don't give. I'm convinced that West Ham has the best fan channels out of any club. Non-stop videos and non-stop streams every day. Brilliant. Thank you. Much appreciated. Espen. Next match. Areola, Soufal, Dinos, Oggy, Emerson. Yes. Alvarez, Johnson, Cornet. Yes. Kudus, Bow and Antonio. I'd go with that. Yeah, I'd go with that. John. Moyes is a joke with the amount of times he leaves his subs scratching their arsenals on the touchline waiting to come on. I totally agree. That's it. Thank you, people. 1 hour and 57 minutes. Really much appreciated. Stop it, Clive. Don't be silly. 1 hour, 57 minutes. Really much appreciated. Look, come on. Have a great week. Enjoy your weekend. Take the missus out. Take the boyfriend out. Do something. Go to a park. Go to a museum. Do whatever. Don't watch any bloody football. Leave that till next Monday. Just enjoy it. Pretend that football doesn't exist for the next 7 days and just enjoy yourself. That's what I'm going to do while I tell a lie. I'm going to do 1 or 2 other shows. But that aside, go and enjoy yourself. I'm already planning to take the missus out somewhere and do something different this weekend. She keeps asking me, football weekend, football weekend. I said, no football this weekend. I haven't told her it's on Monday yet, but there you go. But seriously, have a great week. Forget about the football. Let's worry about it until next Monday. Do look out for any short shows I do the rest of this week. Of course, I'll be doing them. There's the draw. I'll be doing something like that. I don't know if I can take time off work to actually do a live draw, but I'll certainly try. But certainly leading up to the draws, I'll be talking about the teams that we might be playing and so on and so forth. So watch out for that. I've got another script that I've written earlier on, which I'll put out sometime later this week as well. Have a great week. Enjoy yourselves. And I'll see you all very, very soon.